I had it sitting right out the same spot. Well, I thought I tried it. Robert, and then yesterday, I'm on my way up to the senior center baby shower. So this morning, I was like, right there with my
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
All right, it's time to get started. We love each other. We like to visit. Have our donuts. Visit. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and so shall I be saved from my enemies. Know the Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. Know the Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and so shall I be saved from my enemies. You know the Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. You know the Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. I will call upon the Lord. All right. Well, I'm excited this morning. We have Randy Scow from Longmont, Colorado, with the Mountain States Children's Home, and they have some material here at the back. Anyway, I guess I'll let you talk about all that. So, I met Randy at the Equip conference recently, and said, you know, we need to talk. I'm more interested. I've seen the name. I don't know much more about it other than seeing the name. And he said, well, I have to come and talk with you. So he called up and said, I've got a date open. And so here he is. And so I'll go and turn it over to Randy.
Okay, am I on? Okay, yeah, great. My voice doesn't carry you very well without the mic. Well, good morning. Well, I travel around and I speak to different congregations, and you can kind of see the personality of the congregations, and you guys love each other. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, that's just obvious in regards to how you just talk and just have fellowship with each other. It's just great. So I want to say thank you for allowing me to come and share some things about the children's home. Mountain States Children's Home is associated with the Churches of Christ. We're under the eldership of the Longmont Church of Christ. And I'll get into it a little bit more in regards to the, what we do and kind of inform you the details. And then during sermon time, I'll speak to you in regards to a wounded spirit. In regards to a lot of children who come into the children's home have been wounded, and we deal with that a lot in regards to the children, but it also applies to us in regards to bitterness that we may carry and what we need to do about that. So, well, I think there's some connections here in regards to where I grew up. I grew up in Fairview, Montana, eastern part of Montana, right on the border. My dad was full-blood Norwegian. And my mom was full-blood German, and mom definitely fit the stereotype of German people, at least in the area where I grew up. I mean, hard workers, industrious people. I mean, that mom was just really fit that. And dad was a mechanic and a machinist and a welder, and he taught. I had an older brother that's 3.5 years older than I am, and Dad just taught us all these skills, and I still do a lot of my own mechanical work, and I just want to know how the vehicle's working, and I have that skill to do it. And Mom was probably the more consistent discipline in regards to my brother and I growing up, and because she was with us through the day, but. When Dad was, if Mom couldn't manage my brother and I mean, Dad had a look to kill. I mean, in regards to wait till Dad gets home. I mean, it was amazing how quick I could straighten my behavior up, and I could start doing what I needed to be doing because I didn't want to have to deal with Dad. I mean, it was just, that was kind of, anybody have a dad like that? That just kind of like, you knew that you had crossed the border line. I mean, I better straighten up. And, I'm going to talk about discipline. I'm going to turn to Hebrews 12 in a minute. So if you want to turn your Bibles to that chapter. But Mom had her leather strap on the back of the door, or her bedroom door, ready for us to get a spanking whenever we needed a spanking. And I know there's some controversy in regards to whether you spank your kids or not. But my brother and I grew up with that. And we had a little dog called Punky, Punky, and he was a little Chihuahua rat terrier, and Punky did not like us to get a spanking. I mean, it was just, he didn't like that, and I was always wrestling around with my brother and get him in a scissor lock, and I would, I'd have one over on him because he'd have to say uncle, and it just made me feel good because, I had one over my brother, and Mom would say, don't wrestle in the house, you're going to break something. Well, I was probably about 10, 11 or whatever. And, I did something again that I was not supposed to be doing. And so she went to go get that leather strap, and she looked behind her door and the leather strap was gone. Now, let me go back in regards to when Mom was spanking me. Punky was down there grabbing the belt so that she couldn't spank us. She'd go on, he'd grab it, so it would keep us from getting the spanking, So anyway, she went to go get the belt, and I was in trouble for something, and she looked around, and she says, and the belt wasn't there. And she said, Randy, where's the belt? And I said, I don't know. And I thought, oh, great. I'm already in trouble for what I did. Now I'm in trouble because she thinks that I may have hid the belt, and she looked all over the house, and she looked underneath the bed, and there underneath the bed, that leather strap was just chewed to pieces. I mean, it was just gone, She said, that dog chewed up my belt. And I thought, I understood that the wording in regards to dogs are man's best friend. I never had any more spankings after that. You know, Punky took care of that, you know. I make light of all of that. And Mom and Dad disciplined me more than just spanking and punishing me, you know, that way. I mean, it was teaching and mentoring and guiding. Mama even took my brother, me out, and we were holding sugar beets, and, you know, just as I mean, she worked us and she taught us how to have, you know, character traits that we needed to know in regards to get along with others, and, you know, learn to respect authority. All those things that were just very, very important. And I remember going to my mom when I was about 25, and I told Mom, I said, Mom, thank you for raising me the way you did. And I remember she just kind of looked to the ground and the floor, and she just said, you know, Randy, that was the nicest compliment you could have ever given me. And, you know, when we care about our kids, we want them to grow up and to be responsible and take charge of their life, but be responsible, and because that's a life skill that they need, you know, for the rest of their life. But I even thanked her. I said, thank you for spanking me. I appreciated that, because it's kind of like one of those things that got me to think, okay, I can do it. I need to do what I need to be doing. But it prepared me for life, and I just, you know, appreciate it. Both my brother and I have felt that way. But let's turn to Hebrews 12, and it talks about discipline. And it starts off here in regards to the first 4 verses. It talks about painting this picture in regards to us being in an amphitheater surrounded by these people. But the people that are surrounded by are heroes of faith from the past. And if you go back to chapter 11, it's like Abel and Enoch and Abraham and Isaac and Joseph and Moses. You know, you get the picture in regards to here, they're in the stands, and it's not so much they're rooting us verbally, but it's their lives are a testimony that really is encouraging us to stay faithful and to, you know, walk the walk of serving God. And but, you know, the first 4 verses talks about in regards to, you know, that don't get entangled in regards to things, don't, you know, that would detract you from that goal. So I'll read that, but then I'm going to read from 5 on to 11, and it talks about discipline. So therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. You know, Jesus is the ultimate. His life is the ultimate testimony for us to follow, you know, and encouraging us to, you know, walk with Christ. Then I'm going to read here the rest of this. I want some interaction with you in regards to what your thoughts are in regards to what I'll read here. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood, and you have forgotten that word of encouragement that addresses you as sons. My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes everyone he accepts as a son. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is not disciplined by his father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are illegitimate children and not true sons. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? Our fathers disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplined us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. What are some thoughts in regards to how you were raised or you growing up. When you read that passage, any thoughts that come to your mind? Who does God discipline? His children, but those he loves, isn't it? You know, when you go through discipline, then it's how many of us as a kid, when you went through discipline, you were thinking that your parents really loved you? You know, I mean, it was just, they don't want that. You know, how many, you just, you had parents that say, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. And it's kind of like, yeah, Mom, yeah, Dad, that's how is that going to work? You know, they just don't understand in regards to that. But God disciplines those he loves. So, this is kind of indicating when we go through hard things, how important it is to have the right mindset in regards to we're going to learn through this and God's going to perfect us and hone us to be better Christians and be followers of him, and how important that is. What else could pull from this? Yes?
When I was little, my mother was like yours, the main disciplinarian, because she was home with us and Dad was farming. Well, when I got a little older, I asked her, how come you were always the one that disciplined us when we did something naughty? Because a lot of my girlfriends, their mothers would say, you just wait till your dad gets home. And she said, a child needs to be disciplined when they've done something so that they know what they're being disciplined for.
Yeah. Yep. So important it is, because that's part of that training to, let's face it, all of us are kind of self-willed, aren't we? I mean, and children especially, but they don't have the maturity to realize, hey, what's coming next and on down the line. Yes?
Verse 7 stood out. It says, the first half says, endure hardship at this time. And so I think about, not just as a child, being an adult, we go through hard times, we go through suffering, we go through things we may not understand that are happening to us, but it's not, we shouldn't look at it as all bad, it's good that's going to come out of it.
Oh, yeah.
It was stronger in some ways. So.
No, definitely. It does. I think anytime we go through some hardships in life, again, if you could have a selfish attitude, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to go through this? God can really help you to grow in your strength. How many of us, yes, John?
I just remembered that I had a friend when I was growing up complaining about being punished a certain way by my dad. And he told me, you're lucky, at least he cares.
Yes. What does it say? What happens if you're not disciplined? What are you? What's the verse say? You're illegitimate. What's that mean? You're not part of the family. You don't belong. I mean, I knew who I belonged to because my mom and my dad's eyes were on me all the time. I mean, I knew I belonged to them. Some other parent or adult would not care, but they wanted to make sure that I was doing what I needed to be doing. I belonged to them. And that's important for kids to know. And discipline is one of those things that help bring that about, that they know they belong to to their parents, how important it is. That's a good point. How many of us, is it easier to discipline or not discipline?
In the moment, it's easier to not discipline because, like, you had to say, well, I'm picking my battles on that. But then in the long run, it's way worse.
Yes.
Because kids don't know to follow through or how to persevere through things and overcome. Like, we both teach, and I give a kid, I say, hey, I need you to write a 7-sentence paragraph. Last two are I mean, it's like they don't have, there's no follow through. Like, we were at track meet yesterday, and we watched 6 kids scratch their events because they were hurt.
Okay.
But it was like, no, you've been drinking soda and eating Doritos on the sideline. You can't run it. Like, I mean, there's no discipline to follow through their commitments.
Yeah.
I think the difference between looking back, sometimes I just reacted, and that was a discipline.
Right. Oh,
Is
yeah.
whether I'm reacting or whether I'm actually consciously disciplining.
Knowing why you're doing that and what your intent and the goal of all of that is, that's just so important. It's, I take a look at, I bring this up because, I was a director with Mountain States Children's Home for nearly 30 years. And now I'm semi-retired and kind of traveling around and speaking churches and doing change can drives and food runs. And, I just taken that off the new director's position. It was a succession plan for Nick Mears to take over my position. So that's worked out well for the transference of the directorship. But, I've been in childcare for 42 years, and, I take a look at most of the children who come into our care, they have not had good discipline. And they struggle with it, but, their self-esteem. Who are they? Their identity. And being disciplined helps them to understand who they are, what their purpose is. And I think that we're seeing in our world now, we have a lot of children that are not disciplined, and they don't know who they are. There's so much confusion in the world that they don't know, and that's creating a lot of mental health issues and things like that. I want to, share in regards to, here, verse 11, it says, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it." I see children coming in first when they come into the children's home for the first few weeks. They're mad. They don't want to be there. They're held accountable. There's structure. But after a while, you can see they start having peace within themselves. They start having that security that is so important, that discipline brings about that structure. And our kids don't have that. I see a lot in our world, and that's a lot of what we do as far as the children's home. So can we turn that on? Is there a switch on this to turn this on? Pardon? Okay, but it's on, but is it going to go? Yeah. So go forward. There we go. Nick and Abby Mears. Nick is the new executive director. He's been there for nearly 2 years. As I mentioned to you, that it's been a 10-year succession plan. That's part of what our planning was in regards to the transition. So it's gone smoothly, and he's doing a great job. I'll talk about Abby there. My wife headed up, we have an on-ground school. She had that up in 98, and I'll talk more about that. But it's kind of interesting because I was the director, she was the director of education, and now Nick and Abby are doing the same, are filling our roles. So what I want to say that, Mountain States Children's Home, we're in Longmont, Colorado, and there are about 35 Brotherhood Children's Homes in the nation. And what we want to do, we're the most north and northwestern in the nation there, United States. But we want to be a referral source for you as a church. If you know of any children who need help, we want to be available for that, because we want to be an extension to the church. But we want you to know this is what we do, and I think as you see what we do and how we approach it, you'll see the benefits how we can help children. Here, I got a picture here. You can take a look at, we're here in Colorado. Of course, you're in Nebraska. When I became the director of the children's home, I would go farther south. There's 3 children's homes in New Mexico, 1 in Kansas, 3 in Oklahoma, 9 in Texas, and then the rest are kind of through the Bible Belt. But when I networked with churches, if I went south, churches would say, well, we support 4 or 5 children's homes already because, well, of course, there's like 16 churches in a county. Well, I have to go, there may be 16 churches in the whole state of Nebraska, or if you go to Wyoming, the same thing. So I started going more to the north and northwest and visiting and networking with churches to the north and northwest. And, we'd like to be your children's home. If we can help you, we want to be there and available. So that kind of gives you the chart. We don't get out of California and Nevada very much, but we definitely concentrate more on the north. I tell the other directors that sometimes I have to drive 800 miles to go speak at a 50-member church. I mean, and they say, you do what? It's just where we are, And so I've just started networking with churches in the north. All of them come from troubled family situations. Most of them all come from broken homes. You could see that in our society. Abandonment issues, neglect. Neglect's a big one in the sense that parents are just too busy not wanting to take the responsibility to raise their children. I mean, it's just, and taking that time. Abuse, we have seen all types of abuse you can imagine. I mean, you name it, we've seen it. It's, you know, when they come in for an interview and most to come from single parents. It's usually what the call is, a single mom calling up and saying, can you save my child? I don't know what to do. We're licensed from 3 to 17, but we rarely take, we won't take a child under 10 or 11. That's just where we get so many calls. Right now, we're getting between 4 to 6 calls a day of people seeking placement for children. That's changed just even in 19. That's about 2,000 a year. In 19, it was 1,000. So we're just seeing the increase in regards to the number of calls that we're getting. But most of the times it's a single mom. Dad's not involved. They've gone through a divorce. They don't have the financial means. They don't have the emotional support. They don't have the parenting skills. And I'll talk more about how we go about doing that. All of them are wounded. They're all angry. They feel cheated because they don't have a mom and dad and a secure family environment. I mean, they yearn for that. Even though they resist that discipline, that structure, they know that it's good for them. And I think that we all can identify with that. Trauma is a big issue. I think trauma is one of those things today, trauma-informed care in regards to a lot of the trauma. Even placement at the children's home is traumatic for a child. I mean, that and how we address that. But then trust issues, they have their guard up. I mean, they have learned survival skills to protect themselves. I mean, that's just the nature of where they are when they come into the children's home. One of the things we did here a few years ago, just kind of like, okay, we worked with a consultant, just trying to identify and refine what we were doing. And we just said, what? And the consultants, you keep saying you provide a deeper level of care. And, I mean, sometimes you just kind of go about thinking you don't really identify it, but, he said, you just keep saying that. And he said, what's that mean? And we looked at Luke 2:52, and where Jesus grew up, Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, favor with God and man. We said, that's what we do. That's what Jesus needed. That's what we do in regards to the children who come into our care. Educationally, that's probably the wisdom part. Physically, in regards to they're growing up in a home where there's members of the church that are raising and it's a family environment. Spirituality is, we're connected with the church, that's involvement. And then socially and helping them to get along with people and with man. So wisdom, if I take a look at that, this is our school. We built this building in 08. My wife will tell you that I asked her to start the school. I'll go up one more. Maybe there she is teaching. It was in the basement, kind of like the dungeon. The kids called it the underground school. It was a little cellar door. You had to go in there, but that's all we had, And for 11, I said, well, it won't be very long. Well, it was 11 years later, we finally got out of the basement, and we built this school. But we would send kids to the public school, and within 2 or 3 days, they were like magnets to other kids who were not doing well. And they would start cutting classes, and that's because that's what they were familiar with, because there was not structure at home. There wasn't discipline. There wasn't training. We'd send them to school. How you doing? I'm doing fine. Well, then the grades would come, and they were all D's and F's. Well, what's going on here? Well, I just didn't do my homework. Well, I approached Janice, and I said, can you help? She was a teacher. So, can you help us start the on-ground school? And so we started that. We pulled them out of that negative peer group. And what was interesting is just watching the kids academically just grow. Because we pulled them out of all that negative influence. And it was just interesting to watch. This is one of the classrooms one time. But anyway, she'd start the day off with a prayer every day. That was the first class period. And the kids, when they first come in, and say, well, I don't pray. Well, here we do. Well, I don't pray. I don't have anything to pray about. Well, think of something you're thankful for. Well, I'm not thankful for anything. I mean, they're mad because they're replaced. Uprooted from their friends and their friend. That's what we want to do is uproot them and put them into some good soil. And, that kind of went on. Well, be thankful for a t-shirt or your shoes. And the kids would say that. And the other kids that have been here kind of start creating that norm. And then they start praying. And I don't know how many times Janice would say, you should hear the prayers that these kids are saying. And it just started changing their life. And after 2-3 weeks, she said, some of these kids, they've been kind of suspended from school and that, but they're just working their tails off doing their homework. And it's that structure, that accountability, because then they start believing in themselves. And what we did a 12-year study in regards to the kids that came through. All the kids that went through, we do a pre-test and a post-test. And the average improvement is 3.7 grade levels in academic achievement in 1 year, which changes their whole life from thinking they're stupid and dumb and I can't do this and whatever. No, you just have not had a good home environment. In Colorado, you take a look at, or the national average for graduation rate is 82%. If you take a look at in the Colorado foster care system, which I'm assuming goes along with all the other states, that only 24% graduate from high school if they're in the state foster care system. All the children, if they have stayed in our program, we've had 100% that graduate with a accredited degree. Our program is set up. Our school is set up not to keep them until they graduate. It's to help them to get on track, help them to deal with their anger and their behavioral issues and emotional issues, and help them academically. And then we mainstream them back into. For a while, we had a Christian school that was paying for them to go to Christian school, but they closed their high school department. But now they're going to a charter school, and if they're in our program for 3-4 years, they graduate with an accredited degree. So we know we're doing well in regards to helping the kids to go through some pretty tough times in their life. Stature, here's just pictures of the different cottages. I'll just kind of go through this because I probably have a lot of slides to kind of give you a picture of what's going on. These are the older cottages. And then probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago, we wanted to build a new cottage. And we did a fundraising campaign, and the word kind of got out in regards to what we were needing to do. And it was built kind of more like a habitat house where just a lot of volunteers that come together and help us to, volunteers to do it. And we even had a Christian church that stepped up and said, you know what, we want to get involved with you guys. How can we help you? And they contributed $500,000 toward the building of this house, $250 cash, $250 through their volunteers. But they just believed in what we did. And along with the community came together. There was a lot of Habitat people that built Habitat homes. They come in and chipped in and helped us to build this. So we moved into that. I don't have the picture. I had another slide there. But what we did before we put the insulation on inside, before we put the sheetrock on, we had the kids go over and write scriptures and prayers for all the kids, and that would be going through that house. And we never told what the kids to say what they wanted to write on the walls, but one of them that I think just tells an awful lot in regards to where the kids that come in. But she wrote on the first step, when you first walk into the house, she said, the first step is the hardest. And you can about imagine coming into a children's home, that first step is the hardest in regards to making the change in our lives. And we can identify that because there's a lot of things in our life that we just would rather not have to do, but that first step is the hardest. And it just really, to me, it just told the whole story in regards to all of the children that come in, that need help. We had the more we got involved with the community, we even had kids going out and helping set up chairs in the chamber, and get in. When I came in '92, people would say, "Well, we know you're out there, but we don't know anything about you." That has changed so much. With here, one of the examples in regards to the CrossFit trainers came out. They said, we want to work with your kids. And they would come out for 2 and 3 times a week, and they worked with their kids in CrossFit training. And it's kind of a unique approach in regards to it's personal. I mean, it's a matter of pushing yourself physically, and what can you learn from that? And we have 2 counselors on staff, and their approach is that pushing them through physically to barriers like that, but then taking and how can you apply that into a spiritual aspect? How can you develop character, godly character? And so it's even that physical exercise, we take and turn it into something spiritual so that they can see the progress in regards to how they can improve. This is inside the gym, some of the exercises, things that they're doing. This is the gym, and if I take a look at here, we have a lot of youth groups that come and stay with us during the summer. They work for a week for us. They come and do a mission work. And we have the boys, they sleep up on this stage area. We put, office dividers up there so they stay. But the girls there's bathrooms and showers in there, so when the youth groups come, they can stay in the gym area, and the girls will go into the school, which is on the other side of that wall. So the girls are separated, the boys stay in the gym, and they love it because, man, they can play basketball, volleyball, whatever all night long, if they want, if the chaperones let them do that. But it's a pretty unique thing that, when a youth group comes and how they help us out. The basketball goals, you take a look at that. When we built that, it was that, we didn't have the money to buy basketball goals. And again, I'm going to keep saying how God has blessed us. We called the Denver Nuggets Foundation and just said, we're needing some basketball goals. And, is this something that we could apply through your foundation to help us to get some basketball goals? And they said, you called at the right time. We're getting rid of our our goals. Would you like to have those? Yeah, that would be great. So they delivered those out there. These are the real authentic things. I mean, that the Denver Nuggets, it was in their practice gym. They set it up, and they said, well, make sure you tell Michael Jordan and Shaq and tell Michael, all of those guys, they all dunked on these hoops. That was pretty cool, Of course, that was back in 2008. Now you see they have new kids coming in here and say, yeah, Michael Jordan and Shaq, they all dunked on these hoops. They'll look at you and say, well, who are they? So anyway, we're thankful how God has blessed us with that. It's pretty cool. And then in regards to, how our children grow in favor with God. And this is the Longmont Church of Christ. We're under the eldership of the Longmont Church of Christ. And that's the backbone of why we do what we do. I mean, otherwise we're just a secular agency taking care of kids. I'm not saying that's not good. It's good, but we just add that deeper level of care in regards to the spiritual aspect and helping them to heal for the wounds that they have. We also have a medical clinic. You can probably see that there's 2 different things. There's a church building, but over here is the medical clinic. We started a medical clinic probably about 7-8 years ago. And we have hundreds of people coming in to the church building to go to the medical clinic. And it's just an outreach in regards to how we minister to the community and reach out to the community. Anyway, here's a youth group that comes in as far as a mission trip. We do have devotionals. We encourage the youth group, if they come and can lead a devotional with our kids, we want our kids to interact with other church kids to see that here's another way of life that you've never known. You've never seen this. And, kind of like what you guys do in the morning here, getting together in the fellowship and encouragement. And a lot of our kids have never experienced that. And getting involved in regards to the Bible teaching and leading, and we want them to be involved. Here's just some pictures of a youth group that come out, and here's doing an activity, as far as spiritual activity that with our kids, and how important that really is, establishing their spiritual walk. Baptisms, we typically would baptize 2/3 to 3/4 of our kids when they come in. COVID really cut that off. I mean, it was because what was church on? Online, couldn't go to church, couldn't go to youth activities. I mean, it was just all of that. It just killed a lot of our spiritual influence on that. But we're back on track again in regards to it. But, you know, and the kids love to be involved with youth activities, you know, once they start experiencing that. In favor with man, you know, one of the things that we see that when I went to work for the children's home, I mean, it was kids were not having counseling. They weren't, and I just said, every child that comes in, I'm a licensed therapist, so that's probably where it comes from. But every child that would come in, I said, they need to have counseling because there's issues. They're wounded. They're hurt. So we started individual counseling on a weekly basis with the kids. You know, that they'd come in for counseling. We do group counseling. I think I got the next picture. This is Dustin, our director of professional services. But we felt we needed to meet the individual needs. We needed to help them to work through the anger because they were angry. They're all wounded and they're angry because of things not going well in their family. And then we did group work in regards to sometimes there's group topics and things that we can do as a group and helping them to work through things. And then we do family counseling. That's where the root of the problem comes from, is the family breakdown in regards to how can we mend some of the wounds that are going on, you know, with the child in the family, and help them to work through that. So that's where it kind of comes into that we provide a deeper level of care. If you take a look at, you know, it's not just providing them the basics, it's helping them emotionally to work through things. One of the things that the board wanted to say, well, how do we know that we're doing, you know, are helping them emotionally? Well, there's a assessment that we started giving to the kids in regards to measuring different areas of therapeutic concern when they come into care. So it measures school problems, family problems, depression, self-esteem, personal stress, confused thinking, guilt, father problems, aggression, disturbed thinking, mother problems, friend problems, memory loss, drug use, alcohol use, suicide. You know, it measures, it's kind of interesting when it's a self-assessment. They fill it out and it gives us these results. So we know what area we need to work on. And one of the things I want to take a look at here is that at the time of placement, you take a time of placement, and this is really a year later, we give this assessment again. But at the time of placement, you take a look at, there's 48% have 10 to 16 areas of therapeutic concern at the time of placement. If you go back a year later, that green is totally gone. None of them have 10 to 16 areas of therapeutic concern. At the time of placement, you can look over here, there's 47% have 5 to 9 areas of therapeutic concern. And you go over here a year later, you can take a look at, then there's 17% that have 5 to 9 areas of therapeutic concern. So we know they're shrinking, and we're dealing with some things that we need to deal with. At the time of placement, there's 5% that have 0 to 4 areas of therapeutic concern. But then you take a look at after a year, now we have, 83% now have 0 to 4 areas of therapeutic concern. I would venture to say that all of us have 0 to 4 areas of therapeutic concern in our life, even right now. You know, I mean, in the sense of, you know, there's things that we have to help the kids to work through. So we know that we're doing well in regards to helping kids. Community and church involvement. There's just Pratt Management Company. I can see that I'm out of time just about. Pratt Management Company built that office building for us. They come out and they wanted to give us carpet and doors, and I got talking to them a little bit, and they found out we wanted to build a school, and then they wanted to, well, maybe we can build you a new school. I said, you have any problem with that? I said, no, that'd be fine. Well, how about if we basically build a new office building for you? That'd be fine, Lord. Yeah, thank you, Lord. I mean, it was just, and then we put out plans and about a 4,500 square foot building, and they said, well, we don't build anything that small. Can you build that? Can you make it bigger? And now I wish we would have made it bigger than that, because they were, and God just opened up the doors like that. We had to do business before hours, getting community out. You know, there's like, this was an event, about 80 to 90 community people came out. And they're really curious about children's home because we know there's a connotation in regards to children's homes like the orphanages back in the 20s and 30s. And when they come out, they're just amazed in regards to what we're doing. And they take ownership of what we do and how we help kids. And this one of the kids I asked him, would you mind sharing what the home has done? And he talked about all the things the home did. And then he went on, he said, well, this is how I became a Christian and how I was baptized. And how I said, go for it. You know, let the community know that this is our backbone of what we do. We started a thrift store. And, you know, the more we got in community, the more people donated stuff. There's stuff like, what are we going to do with all this stuff? We got to somehow turn this into cash so we can spend it for what we need. And the community has been so good. This is inside our thrift store. And we started off a 4,000 square foot building. Now we're at a 12,000 square foot building. And now we need a bigger building because we have more stuff donated. And people come say, we love what you do. We want to help you to do what you do. They even say, take what you want and the rest of it we'll give it to Goodwill. I mean, it's just how it is, you know. So that's inside. And then I do food runs. You know, we do a Nebraska food run that go around picking up from all the churches in Nebraska who want to participate in the food run. They collect food for us. And if you see me, I got a big van and I'm going to be going back and that big van will be loaded. Coloradans, they do a car show and it benefited us. They had so much issues with the city because of the cost. They had to hire extra police, extra trash people, and it just started costing so much for them. And they, you know, that they weren't making much money for us because they give the net proceeds to us. And they said, can we do the car show at the children's home? I said, yeah, that'd be great. 450 people come out and they see what we're doing and they love it. They said, we love come here. This is the best car show that we have because we know where the money goes and helping us, you know, to do what we do. We have a clay shoot. If anybody's interested in coming participate, that's in the middle of July. We have a big event in regards, this has grown from, it's Ale is what we call it. When we first started, it was about 120 people, 75% members of the church, 25% not. This year's, we have, it's before COVID, it was 528 registered. A fourth of it was probably members of the church. 3/4 of it was non-members of the church because they love what we do. Developments, we wanted to realize that kids needed help after they graduate. So we bought an apartment complex, and that's a whole different story in regards to just when they graduate, we can put them in these small apartments, in these hotels. And when we looked at it, we found out that it was a member of the church that owned it. And he had 3 cash offers before that. And the guy said, well, I don't know why he's not taking it. Well, we know God was working it. He was a member of the church, and he says, you guys are getting it. By the time we closed, 7 cash offers and one for $150,000 more than what he was asking. Then I have another one, a house that was being built. Home Aid came up to us. It's a Home Builders Association, nonprofit put together by the Home Builders Association. When they saw us building this other home, they said, we want to help you build a new home. Okay, Lord, thank you. So they built this home. Lennar Homes oversaw it, the National Home Builders Association. And they built the home. And if you take a look at it, they furnished. They told me to come out to a model home. They said, you take everything that you want in this model home. And they furnished the home with all new furnishings and everything. And there's some other, anyway, I know I'm out of time, but anyway, hopefully that helps you to understand what we say. We provide a deeper level of care of how we're caring for the kids that come in and who come into our care. So thank you for allowing me to share. I'll show you this. We have change cans back there. Somebody like to, I come back in October and I pick up change cans. If you'd like to take a change can, put change in there, dollar bills, $5 bills, whatever. I mean, that's what's happening is change is less, but we're getting more dollars in those things. So anyway, thank you. Appreciate it very much. And I'll answer any questions. I'll be back there if you have some. So thank you.